Uh, Andy, after all this entrepreneurship, how do you think you do working in a big company? Like if you got a good job at somewhere big, an Apple, an AMD or whatever, are you wired for that? Or have you been,
Nah, probably. It's a good question. Like I liked working at Apple, but we were like, well, last year we were like a startup within, a huge
mm-hmm.
company. They were kind of like, you're over here, your ads, don't fuck up everything else with Apple because everybody on the executive team is super nervous that ads are going to come into all these apps and wreck it, and no one's going to want to use them anymore. So it had this double-edged sword, and I reported directly to Steve Jobs, which was unusual. So I had this like weird setup, anyways, and he was pretty sick, so it was even stranger. So I don't know how accurate that would be for my temperature, but yeah, probably not. Like it would be cool to have some really big job, like hey, like you're the president of something really fun and interesting. But I think just the whole structure and like formal reporting and I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
okay, not the best at
How long were you
that.
reporting to Steve Jobs? Did you work there up until he passed away, or
Yeah,
before
2 years.
that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 2 years.
Was he real
Yeah, the
sick the
last.
whole time you were there, or did you kind of get to experience some of him being eccentric? Because you heard so much about him being like, wearing his jeans with no belt, walking around in his New Balances, kind of just being a goober. Is what it sounded like. Was you obviously had heard of him before you started there? Did expectations line up?
Oh yeah, he was very sick, very sick. Like the first time I saw him, I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like I was not a fanboy and didn't know every bit of his life, like my co-founder, my CTO. But he was, he was a scarecrow. He was a thin guy who was obviously trying.
When you see
Uh,
someone that's that ill and they're still working, do you relate to that sort of work ethic? I guess you might call it, or are you like, man, I'd be at home with the family. I'd
That's
be
a
like,
great question. I don't know, I can't speak for his life and his, his relationships with his family, but Apple was his family. There's no
yeah,
doubt. I mean, that's his baby. And I can't imagine him healthy because he crushed everybody with his work ethic when he was, in his last couple of years. Like
Mm.
I think he knew he was dying and he wanted to go real fast and he wanted to see this get done and this get done. I want to see this get done. But Apple's thing was like, he created this culture where he would bring you in and say, okay, I really love this idea. How long is it going to take to build whatever, the next iPod? And you'd say, he'd bring the engineers and you'd all meet and you'd come back and you'd say, 9 months. We can get this thing ready to go, certified, for production, 9 months. He's like, okay, I'll give you 3. And you'd be like, no, I mean, we can't even get through the first phase of planning in 3 months. He's like, you got 3 months and you're going to get it done. And they always did. They always did because he made you feel like your shit didn't stink. And if you were at Apple, you were a superhero and you were handpicked, and they were, and they always did. And
Huh.
he did that times 10 when he was, failing. So I think this was just his thing. I think not getting to go in was an awful feeling for him the days he couldn't make it in.
I worked at Cisco for a while, and sometimes playing with timelines, like I worked there 13 years. So you'd learn, like, if they say, Woody, how long does this take? And I explain to them I can do it in 3 weeks. And then I freaking nail it and get it done in 3 weeks and everything is great. They say, huh? Yeah, whatever. I mean, it wasn't that big a
par for the
project.
course.
Right? But if I say I can get this done in 12 weeks and then also nail it and get it done when I said I would get it done, they were like, that was a pretty major endeavor. Huh? You got it done in 12 weeks.
That's exactly what Scotty does on Star Trek. Like Scott, the captain's like, how long till we get power back on, Scott? And he's like, 3 days. He knows it's one day.
Mm-hmm.
He knows it's one day. It's always 3 or 4 days, and he's always going to knock it out in 12 hours. Like he just multiplies whatever it's going to take by 8, and then he gets it done and looks like a genius.
People would catch on after a little bit.
No, they never did. Yeah,
No.
I mean, that show was on for years, and you were just like,
They never figured it out.
In Cisco IT, the
called
management didn't have a lot of technical expertise. So they just seemed to have no idea how long something should take. I felt like they had a trouble identifying who were top performers and who weren't. And a lot of career success in Cisco IT anyway had to do with how well you managed up and, and like how well you communicated with them, how, whether you hit your dates and things like that. And they really didn't care or know or understand who wrote the best if conditional statements. It was about how you presented yourself to the people above you.
Yeah. So a lot of businesses being liked, being like on schedule, that kind of shit.
Trustworthy. Yeah. Oh, carry on.
What
Sometimes here we talk about. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm already rolling.
Go for it.
Sometimes here we discuss like that the difficulty of staying motivated once you've made a certain amount of money, the amount of money, whatever it is, where like, man, I can just live off interest at this point. I kind of got this thing sewn up, and I think sometimes we marvel at the people who are like 5 million. I was really going for 50 or 50. I was really trying to get that big B in front of my worth. But for someone like Steve Jobs, I feel like that is taking it to this whole other level where it's like, oh, so you're telling me I've got 20 months to live? I bet I could get a few projects out in 20 months. Really, if I get on the team, we could probably get the next device out, and we could get a new operating system. Maybe we can really get. And I don't relate to that.
Yeah, that's foreign to me. I'd be like, see you later, everyone. I'm going to die on a beach somewhere.
Yeah.
Andy, in that way, I think Apple and a lot of the things that he did toward the end, and that's where I'm leading to with this, has to be like a big part of his final legacy. Were there any things that he was prioritizing toward the end that you feel like maybe like he looked at as like sort of putting a bow on his legacy,
his magnum opus?
Yeah. Like what was he focused on in the latter days? Was it just business as usual, or was it like, there's this one thing I've been wanting to do, and if I could just get that knocked out?
There was two things I would say. One was the new headquarters, which is insane. I mean, it's the coolest building in America. It's unbelievable. And it's, a giant monument to him. The other thing was he has this thing called Apple University. Not that many people know about. Do you guys know what that is?
No, not at all.
So he built Apple University inside of Apple. He hired, I think it was the dean of Yale Business School or something. And he wanted to always have sort of his culture and history and drive and vision really codified and embodied in Apple. And so he started to create classes and curriculums around like how to be an Apple person and how to think like Apple, and executive programs for new people who came in. Like one of the things he said to me when he bought my company, when he, at the frequent times that he was annoyed with me and the way I thought, he'd be like, I bought you. I didn't hire you. You don't think like an Apple person. He'd say you're too he said you're a complicated man. And I'd be like, oh, I guess that's not a compliment. He's like, no, you use 10 words when you can use 2 words. You show me, a whole, PowerPoint presentation when you can just show me a picture. He goes through the whole list, right? He's spent his whole life trying to simplify everything. In fact, like the outside of the Marcom office, you can even look it up online. He created this installation that basically is the word simplify, crossed out, simplify, crossed out, simplify. And that was it, right? That's the way he lived. And I didn't think that way. And he wanted to make sure that if you came, that's the way you're going to think and work. So there's a great history. You hear all the stories, you learn all about the business and what sort of Steve wanted to leave as a legacy. And it's a big part of their training.
Didn't he simplify his diet towards the end by only eating fruit? That's a real thing, right? He only ate fruit for a while.
I guess so.
He simplified his wardrobe.
Well, he had a simple wardrobe, and I'm pretty sure he was like a fruitarian. I remember that at the time where it was like he just ate fruit. And even at the time, I'm like, God, how is he working? Like, is he working from the bathroom? Just shitting constantly. Well, I had a bushel of apples and 3 bananas for dinner last night. Like that sounds awful.
I think simplifying your wardrobe might be really good for productivity in the end, though. Like whenever you watch those futuristic shows like Star Trek, even Star Wars, whatever, everybody's wearing the same thing.
Right? That guy with the red beard, Simpsons.
They've all gotten together and they've agreed, this is the look. This is the look for us. This is utilitarian and fashionable. Let's go with this.
That's why he did it. He didn't give a shit. He just didn't want to have to pick out his clothes every day. He picked out a new T-shirt, black shirt, put it on, put the jeans on, put the New Balances on, went to work. Didn't care.
In a way, that dressing down kind of works for you at some stage in your life, right? Like if you're aspiring to be a VP, then dressing like that doesn't really work. But if you're the man on top, now dressing like that's part of your legend. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
So you look at Steve Jobs' way, simplify, use a picture, not a PowerPoint, etc. And you think because Steve Jobs was successful, that is the way to be successful. But you have your own opinions. Was he right? Or sometimes maybe a little context a good idea, and some problems aren't simple.
Yeah, well, I think he's right if you want to run a big business. I think he's right if you want to just. It wasn't like saying. I don't think it was his way. Like his way doesn't work for everyone. He was he was a 5-tool athlete, right? If you talk about a baseball player who can run, catch, throw, pit, whatever, he could do everything. He's the world's greatest salesman, right? He sold you stuff you didn't know you wanted. He was unbelievable with design, unbelievable, cursed with this curiosity and dislike of everything. So I remember I came up to him one day and I was wearing a pair of New Balances I bought that I was very proud of that had no laces, right? It just like it was early days when there were shoes with no laces, right? Just the little circular, what are those things called? The lots, whatever they are. And he's like, your shoes have no laces. I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, how do they stay on your feet? I'm like, oh, they got this little thing in here. Oh, let me see. And he like looked at it for like minutes and he's like, why would you wear this? That's kind of dumb. And I was like, cool. You know, like, so like he doesn't like everything he had no furniture, like because he thought he could do better. That's kind of a curse, I guess, in life. You're not satisfied with anything. But it is a great way of being able to scale. Like I don't have a lot of great traits, but I'm an awesome multitasker. Even at my advanced age, I can do a ton of shit at the same time, and it pisses a lot of people off because they're like, wait. All right, one thing, like, how do we, people who work with me, and he basically made me think like an Apple person, which was boil everything down to its core points. Don't worry about the rest of the shit because it really doesn't matter, and let's make big decisions on core things. And I used to come in with a whole bunch of stuff. He'd be like, no. And then when I started to learn to boil stuff down, I could handle a lot of stuff at once. And then the problem was all the people who reported me, they couldn't do it. So they were still bringing me a ton of crap. And then I would have to boil it all down. And it was like, no, I can't handle life anymore. There's way too much stuff. But it is a great talent. And I think if you're going to scale, and be able to handle a lot of things and a lot of people and make a lot of decisions, that's a company that has no focus groups. There's no hierarchy. It's the same 10 guys for the last, 20, 30 years in that executive team. And they have a meeting every Monday. I think it's Monday. What the hell is it called? Executive meeting, senior staff meeting. And it would go on until they were done. And they would make tons of decisions. And Steve's rules were like, if you came in here, everything you said had to be 100% factual, no politics, truthful. We're not going to go look up if you say that the manufacturing was this or that. And we're going to make decisions here. And the day we find out that you're not prepared or you are giving us some type of agenda, then you're out of the boardroom. And we saw it. He got rid of people.